Hello everyone, my name is Filiz Çakır Phillip. I am very pleased and honored to introduce my partner today in our series of global conversation. Wafaa Bilal is an Iraqi-born contemporary artist, and he is teaching as professor at the New York University's Tisch School of the Arts. Wafaa is known internationally for his online performative and interactive works and provokes dialogue about international politics and internal dynamics. Wafaa's work can be found in the permanent collections of Los Angeles County Museum of Art, the Museum of Contemporary Photography in Chicago, and the Arab Museum of Modern Art in Doha. Dear Wafaa, thank you for participating on this conversation.
Thank you so much, Phyllis. It's really an honor to be talking to you. And as always, I enjoy very much our conversations.
Thank you. As a contemporary artist, your projects are always meaningful, provocative, and interactive. You have been very successful with your library project, which I much love. And we exhibited here actually at the Aga Khan Museum during the summer of 2018 under the title From Baghdad to Timbuktu, Libraries Rising from the Ashes. Could you please update us on this project, which you started a couple of years ago?
Thank you so much. So since 2018, when we exhibited at Aga Khan, I went on to exhibit at MoMA PS1 in New York, and also NOMA in New Orleans, and also we received a very generous donation from the Met in New York. The Met donated 1,300 rare archaeology book that is going to be delivered to the Iraqi National Museum to host these books and give access to the scholar there. And collectively, now our next shipment, which we are in the process of delivering, that is 2,500 books split between the College of Fine Art and the Iraqi National Museum. So that's on logistical and update on what is happening in terms of collecting book. And the show or the library is going to be an ongoing, as you may know. But the news I'm really excited about it, beside interacting with people collecting book, is a new collaboration with the Target a creative studio in the University of Minneapolis, where we bring in the community together in dialogue with the community in Iraq. And the objective of this extended project, which we are calling 16802, and now is to think about a bigger image in terms of creating a cultural hub in Baghdad. And I am collaborating with so many entities on campus at the University of Minnesota, and to bring them together to imagine a space in Baghdad, in Iraq, that's solely dedicated to fine art and also have access to small theater, studio practices, to bring people together around the idea of books, but also around the idea is much needed, which is a cultural hub to interact with each other and to forge connections.
As far as I know, all your projects somehow involve some interactivities, and you like also working with communities, as we see in this picture of as a part of your library project. And I just want to also know, as I am aware about it, you are always engaged with one or more projects. And I would like to ask you if you reveal which project or projects you are working right now. And maybe you can even give us a teaser or something coming up in the near future.
Well, thank you for this question. It's a really important one. It is true. Always, I'm engaged in more than one project, and it has a lot to do with the project needs to mature in its conception. Also, it's in bringing people together. They do have an interactive element in them, whether it is in technology or whether it is harvesting connection between people. And I view that as an interactivity too. One project in particular, I've been working on it for maybe 2 years now. And it has a lot to do with culture and culture lost. And the project, unfortunately, was inspired by the destruction of the Lama Shoe in Mosul, the wing ball in the Museum of Mosul. That is when ISIS occupied Mosul. They went on to destroy the icon of the culture. And when I was thinking about what is it about aggression or aggressor, that is they destroy anything has to do with culture and artifact, and then it dawned on me, the artifact is the history of the culture and what really glue them together. So a culture embed ideas, practices into these objects in order to belong. And when an aggressor moved into a new land, the first thing they do, they destroy these artifacts, which is not an arbitrary thing. It is very well thought of, because once you destroy the artifact, you destroy the culture, and once you destroy the culture, you have total control, and it become a new way of slavery.
It's somehow also deleting the entire memories of a nation and culture.
That's exactly it. Once you erase that memory, you have you could write a new one, and we've seen that in so many times throughout history. So from that idea, I thought, how is it we could preserve culture artifact, yet they become invisible too? Because if somebody wanted to destroy an object, that is an easy thing. You have access to it. But what if the object is preserved, but really not invisible, and not in a physical form, the way we perceive object? So that brings me to the next step. This is a bit of complicated project, and I'm trying to decode it without overwhelming and make people bored. The next step, I collaborated with the Met in New York, and fortunately, they do have a copy of the wing ball and the wing lion from Iraq too. And so I scanned them, and after the scan, it would be a few steps. Scanning is turning the object from its physical into a digital form. I'm going through that digital code and turn it into a binary, then take that binary and insert it in the DNA of a wheat plant, which is wheat plant, one of the oldest plant that harvest in Iraq when settlement start happening probably 10,000 years ago. And now,
as you know, as far as I can contribute in this conversation, the cultures, the civilization of your human being always starts first with agriculture.
Yes, exactly. And then, of course, it moved into other form of production. So I thought of a wheat plant as a symbolic of Iraq, and I thought the wing bull, the wing lion, is also a symbolic of Iraq, of the Assyrian who lived there and who contributed so much. Then that scan of the wing bull will be in the DNA of the wheat plant. So after taking the digital form, attaching it in the protein, and then insert it in the wheat plant, I am going to plant it and harvest it again, and yet inserting the object into the wheat plant so it would exist beyond a human destruction, and it will exist for a very, very long time.
So practically through your art and through your installation, you will preserve the culture of Iraq and make it sure that the new generations have access to it.
Absolutely. And if you think about it, we go into the interactive element of it. It's bringing people together to work on these projects, from a curator to the scientist to the artists to the people who are on the ground. And in return, we are preserving culture by making it invisible in a way.
Yeah. You have revealed to me in previous conversations that you have experienced being a refugee and that you went through a very difficult and burdensome immigration process. Would you say that art and making art has helped you overcome many of these obstacles you have faced? Do you believe in the art, in the power of arts?
Well, thank you so much. I mean, it's a very thoughtful question in a sense of reflecting back on life. I really believe the first time I started doing art, it was a form of escape. Imagine we were 7 kids, and mom and dad lived in a single room, and then I had this idea when I was a kid to build my own room under the staircase, and it became my first studio before age of 13 or even younger than that. But when I think about it, then what was happening, I'm escaping the reality I was in order to create my own reality. And that continue art empowering me. I remember when I become vocal against Saddam regime, art become my tool to project my voice. And then when I left Iraq and went into a refugee camp in Saudi Arabia and Kuwait for 2 years, art became a way for me to know I exist. So art is a record, archive of our life, an escape, a reflection, and also a trigger for social, economic, and justice, and to bring people together against oppression too. And on top of that, enjoying the aesthetic of creating an artwork.
I found very interesting, in your artistic creation, your desire to involve a community and work with the people together and share your experience or feelings with people. How come?
I think that is because of certain ideas I adopted. And one of them is Walter Benjamin, the storyteller concept. With the storytelling, when you retell a story, you adopt it as your own and you create a version of it. So an artist practice by creating an object and then embedded that object with the meaning. For me, and we now it has, of course, a name and people practice. And relational aesthetic is harvesting the connection, the interaction from people. But unlike relational aesthetic, which is void of politics, I am bringing politics, bringing people together to create the artwork. So in a sense, I'm triggering a platform and then bringing people to write their own narrative by helping actualizing the project. And for me, that's why I just like refer them as a dynamic encounter.
Yeah.
This is where the role of the artist change. And I'm really interested in the idea of what come out of the interactivity among people themselves. And since I'm giving them an active role in these projects, every one of them has his or her own narrative to tell about not only the project, but what brought them together in order to conceive that project.
I would like to know from you, as far as I understood, your installations and artworks have always a very strong documentary component. And would you like to share with us why the documentation is so important for your artistic creation? And related to the PowerPoint that we are sharing here with our public, why do you have this desire to use your body as surface for your artworks?
Great question, Filiz. It's like, as always, very challenging. So I'm thinking about what I work in performance, right?
Yes.
A performance, by its definition, is ephemeral. And
but let me insert another question. Would you describe yourself as performance artist, contemporary artist, activist? How many adjectives do we need to fill you?
I think if we pick one is good.
Okay.
Artist. And every other label you could put on that. So going back to the earlier question about documentation, a performance is ephemeral. And for me, I rarely restage performance. But what's left out of the performance is the documentation, and the documentation carries what took place that time and at that place for other people to reflect on it. So again, the documentation becomes a trigger to jog our memories and go and share the objective of each project.
I see. And, I get it. I literally can feel your love of Iraq, and you have at least 2 or 3 installations where you express the love and your connection to the heritage of Iraq, and also how you actively participate in the preservation of the culture, as we see in this installation of you using your own body to give a platform and for the fallen people, but also to emphasize we should not forget.
Yes, it's really important. So we talk about I'm a performance artist. I'm an artist, and I use my body in as a medium. With this particular project, it's called Encounting, and that was a project meditating on the idea of visible and invisible death. Visible death of the Allied soldier and an invisible death, 150,000 during the American invasion alone of Iraqis lost their life without anybody knowing their name. So with this one, I again staged an encounter where I tattoo the Iraqi cities, which you see here on my back, and in a regular ink, and then in an invisible ink. I allocated one dot to every single Iraqi and where they lost their life. So under a normal light, what you see, you see just the cities of Iraq, but when up on a close examination, you see all the death represented by a single dot with an invisible ink. And at the same time, during that encounter, I allowed people to pick up stacks of names, Iraqis and American soldiers, and read their name. And I thought, reading their name they become visible once again. And by reading the name, we acknowledge our loss.
Absolutely. And I think this is the moment where the healing can start.
Yes.
And sharing the event, sharing the feelings, and identifying the emotions, and so you use your body as platform to that people can come together and
also the pain.
Reality.
The pain that is when you see the body in front of you in pain, and that pain it transfer into the viewer body, because the performance has this powerful of immediacy. It's not mediated, especially when the people walk into the gallery and seeing me receiving a needle after needle after needle for 24 hours nonstop.
Exactly. And I think, in your artworks, the component of community outreach, interactivity, using your body as surface and performing throughout your installations, and your love of Iraq and love of books. My next and last question would be around 2020. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you had planned the year 2020 in a totally different way. And our normal lives have been changed drastically since spring. And it has been dominated by virtual content. And I'm sure as a performance artist and virtual artist, you are more familiar than any of us. How do you reimagine the future of artists following the pandemic? Do you think that that this virtual boost will have a lasting effect on us or in our life?
Indeed, we are sharing something collective and somehow equalizer too. So this is going to live in our memories for a long time. For me, I've been engaging in art and tech and virtual world for a very long time. And somehow I cannot believe that we could dematerialize art, to be honest.
Yeah.
The structure of institution, the galleries, a monetary exchange, we can't. We just like almost your question bring us back to the idea of why objects are so important.
Exactly.
And for me is look what we face in here. Everything can become digital, and we become so bored within a few days, and just like screaming, getting us out of this. So what I think is going to happen, the object always will be part of the practice. The institution who are hosting these objects and giving access to people will come back, and that's what we really longing for. But make no doubt about it, the digital platform, it is going to expand beyond our imagination, to be honest. And I really think what we are going about to make another leap. 10 years ago, I wrote a paper about cognitive demand and how we are going to interact with each other in the future. And I really think this is the next. We are witnessing the next leap in communicating with each other. So what I imagine in the future is all these gadgets will disappear, and we were able to communicate with each other by thoughts, and we are going to most likely create that way too. And I think it's hinging on one last thing: how do you physically connect the brain into a computer chip, which I know it is already taking place, and we are so close to it. To wrap up this question is there is no one word could substitute the other.
Exactly. Thank you for saying that.
World. Yes, we escape the digital world when we are overwhelmed with the physical, and we escape that. We go back to the physical when we are overwhelmed with the digital. They are completely two different world, and I think you, no doubt, artists and everybody else will eager to go back to normal life.
That's why I think when I saw your installation about the books and the library around the library, I was fascinated because I was thinking, okay, here we have a contemporary artist who is so sensitive about the libraries as physical component, and it also as facility, as environment, as piazza. And he values the importance of books, physical books, and the housing books in library. And you are from Iraq, and then I was thinking, is there any influence on you from House of Wisdom? As we know, one of the most important and famous libraries of the world, which was destroyed in medieval time. And then yet in 21st century, a contemporary artist who is so keen on virtual platform and performance artist, and yet cares about physical books and creates installation and collects over more 5 years books to turn back to Iraq and build up a library. And that gives me hope, actually, to say.
Yeah, what a great way to put it. I really think our work as artists is a reflection of what we go through. The library project was, even the name was inspired by the books that throw in the river for 7 days, and they bleed ink, and after that they become white, and I'm offering them as a reward in order to rebuild. But my love to the library goes way back to the childhood when I really escaped home to go and study in the public library, and it's literally saved my life and made me who I am. And now I'm going back to reflect on the history or my life in among the books and in libraries, but at the same time, I'm practical too. Think about what Iraqi facing now: shortage of electricity, shortage of getting into the platform, and it become so important for them to be in the physical place among all of these books that arrive in, sitting down and disconnect from the world. And that's what the book could offer, is this idea of escape and engaging in the world you are unfolding in front of you. And it's so different from the experience different from one person to another, because the interpretation of the text, it's so different too.
I'm so glad you are thinking how you are thinking, and thank you so much for engaging with us and being together with us together and participating on this conversation. I really appreciated your time and your energy, and thank you for sharing some of your ideas, what you are going to do in future.
My great pleasure, Phil. And thank you so much. And thanks to Aga Khan Museum and institution. What a great, I really can't explain how a pleasure being working with you guys. And I'm so glad we are having this conversation.
Thank you so much. I wish you a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.